In a small and quiet village in Nigeria, there lived a woman named Ekene. Ekene was a kind woman with a warm smile, but her heart was heavy. She had 3 little children, and they all lived in a tiny, old house with cracked walls. Ekene's husband, Obinna, had passed away suddenly, leaving her to care for their children alone. Life became very hard for Ekene. She had no money and many debts to pay. There were days when she had no food to give her children, and they went to bed hungry. But Ekene had something special, her faith in God. She believed that God would help her, even when things seemed hopeless. In one corner of their small room, Ekene built a tiny altar using an old wooden stool. On the altar, she placed a small cross and a candle. Every day, she would kneel in front of the altar and pray. Her children would sit quietly, watching their mother as she whispered her prayers. One night, after a long day of working in the fields for a small wage, Ekene knelt before her altar. She prayed harder than she ever had before. She cried, "God, I don't know what to do. My children are hungry. Please show me a way." That night, Ekene had a strange dream. In the dream, she was standing in a dry, barren field with cracked soil. She held a small handful of millet seeds. A voice, soft and kind, whispered, "Plant the seeds, and you will see." Ekene woke up before the sun rose. She sat up in her bed, thinking about the dream. She didn't have much millet left, just a handful in a small clay pot. It was the last bit of food for her family. Her heart raced as she thought about the dream. Was this God speaking to me? She wondered. The next morning, Ekene took her children to the small piece of land behind their house. The land was dry and full of weeds. Holding the millet seeds in her hand, she said a prayer. "Dear God, I trust you. I will plant these seeds." With her children watching, Ekene dug small holes in the ground and dropped the tiny seeds inside. She covered them with soil and watered them with a small calabash of water, the only water she had left. Days turned into weeks, and Ekene went to the field every morning to check on the seeds. At first, nothing happened. The soil looked as dry as ever. Some of her neighbors laughed at her. "Ekene, why are you wasting your time?" they said. But Ekene didn't give up. She prayed every day, asking God to bless the seeds. She believed something would happen. One morning, as the sun rose and painted the sky with soft orange and pink, Ekene went to the field. Her heart leaped with joy. Small green shoots were peeking out of the ground. The little shoots began to grow taller and stronger every day. Soon, the field was full of healthy millet plants. It was the most beautiful field Ekene had ever seen. The whole village came to see the miracle. People couldn't believe their eyes. "How did this happen?" they asked. Ekene only smiled and said, "It is God's blessing." Every day, Ekene and her children went to the field to care for the millet plants. They pulled out weeds, watered the soil, and watched the plants grow taller under the bright sun. The field looked like a golden sea as the millet ripened, swaying gently in the breeze. One morning, as Ekene stood by the field with her youngest child, Uchenna, the village chief, Alhaji Nadi, arrived. He was a tall man with a deep voice that always made people listen. He walked slowly around the field, his hands clasped behind his back, and his eyes wide with amazement. "Ekene," he said, "this is truly a wonder. The land was barren, yet now it is full of life. How did you do it?" Ekene bowed her head respectfully and said, "It wasn't me, Alhaji. It was God. I only planted the seeds as I was shown in my dream." The chief nodded, his face thoughtful. "Your faith has brought you blessings, Ekene. But tell me, what will you do with all this millet?" Ekene hadn't thought about it before. She looked at the golden stalks and felt both hope and fear. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "I just want to make sure my children never go hungry again." The chief smiled kindly. "You are a strong woman, Ekene. Perhaps this harvest will help not just your family, but the whole village." Word of the miracle spread far and wide, and soon traders from nearby villages came to see the extraordinary field. They offered to buy the millet, promising a good price. Ekene was unsure what to do. She didn't want to make a mistake. So that evening, she knelt at her altar once again. Her children knelt beside her as she prayed, "God, you have blessed me with this harvest. Please guide me so I can use it wisely." That night, Ekene had another dream. This time, she saw herself standing in a market, selling sacks of millet to smiling customers. She saw women with empty baskets leaving with food to feed their families. Then she heard the same soft voice from before. "Share your blessings, and they will grow." The next morning, Ekene gathered her children and told them about the dream. "We will sell some of the millet," she said. "But we will also give some to those who need it, just as God has given to us." With the help of a kind neighbor, she harvested the millet. They filled big sacks and carried them to the village square. People from all over came to buy. Ekene sold some millet for money to pay her debts and buy food and clothes for her children. But she also gave sacks of millet to the poorest families in the village. The villagers were amazed at Ekene's kindness. "You could have kept it all for yourself," one woman said. Ekene smiled. "When God gives you blessings, it's so you can share them," she said. But as the days passed, something strange began to happen. A rumor spread that the barren land behind Ekene's house had a special power. Some villagers began sneaking into the field at night, digging up the soil, hoping to find what made the land so fruitful. Ekene didn't know what to do. She was grateful for the blessings she had received, but now her peaceful life was being disturbed. She prayed again, asking God for wisdom. And once again, God would answer her prayers in an unexpected way. But what that answer would be, and how it would change her life and the village, was yet to unfold. The villagers' curiosity about Ekene's field grew stronger by the day. Some whispered that the land must be magical, while others said that Ekene had discovered a secret fertilizer. One night, a group of young men crept into the field with lanterns, determined to uncover the truth. They dug into the soil, but all they found was dirt and roots. Frustrated, they left, but the damage to the field was done. The next morning, Ekene discovered the trampled plants and holes in the soil. Her heart sank, and she fell to her knees. "God, what should I do now?" she cried. Her eldest son, Chijioke, a boy of 12, clenched his fists. "Mama, we should tell the chief. They can't destroy our field like this." But Ekene shook her head. "No, my son. We will not repay wrong with wrong. Let us be patient and trust in God." She and her children worked tirelessly to repair the damage, replanting what they could and tidying the field. That evening, the chief visited again. He had heard about the trouble and wanted to help. "Ekene," he said, "your patience is admirable, but the people need to understand that this land is not magical. It is your faith and hard work that brought the blessings." He suggested that Ekene teach the villagers how to farm with the same dedication she had shown. At first, Ekene was hesitant. "Who am I to teach others?" she asked. The chief smiled. "You are a woman of great faith and wisdom. That is enough." The next day, Ekene gathered the villagers under the large iroko tree in the center of the village. With a soft voice but a strong heart, she shared her story. "I had no special tools, no magic, and no riches," she began. "All I had was a dream, my faith, and these hands to work the land. I prayed, planted, and trusted in God. And He did the rest." Some villagers nodded in understanding, while others still looked doubtful. "But why did only your field grow when ours stayed dry?" one man asked. Ekene thought for a moment. "Perhaps it was to show us what faith and hard work can do. And perhaps it was also a test not just for me but for all of us. If we trust in God and help each other, maybe we can all be blessed." Inspired by her words, some villagers offered to help protect her field, while others asked her to teach them how to care for their own land. Ekene agreed, but she warned them, "The blessings come not just from the work of our hands, but from the humility in our hearts." However, not everyone in the village was happy with this new unity. A wealthy trader named Aneo, who owned much of the farmland in the area, began to feel threatened. He had always been proud of his power and wealth, but now the villagers were looking up to Ekene instead of him. Aneo hatched a plan to regain his influence. He spread rumors, saying, "Ekene is hiding something. How else could a widow succeed where others have failed? Maybe she has powers we don't understand." The whispers grew louder, and soon, fear and envy began to creep into the hearts of some villagers. Ekene noticed the change. Fewer people came to the field to learn from her, and some began avoiding her altogether. One night, as Ekene sat by her altar, she prayed again. God, I have done what I can, but now my heart is troubled. Show me what to do next. That night, her dream returned. This time, she saw a storm rolling across the village, shaking the trees and scattering the crops. But in the middle of the storm, a tiny seedling stood firm, its leaves glowing with light. The voice from her first dream spoke again. Do not be afraid. What is planted in faith will always grow, no matter the storm. The storm was coming, but Ekene now felt prepared. What would this storm bring, and how would it shape the future of the village? Only time would reveal the answers. The storm came in many forms. Aneo, determined to destroy Ekene's reputation, convinced some villagers to stop supporting her. He claimed she was using charms to grow her crops and warned them to stay away from her field. Others, out of fear or jealousy, began avoiding her entirely. But Ekene remained calm and unwavering. She continued to tend to her field, teach the willing villagers, and pray at her altar every night. Her children followed her example, showing kindness even to those who turned against them. One evening, dark clouds rolled over the village and a fierce rainstorm began. The winds howled, and the rain poured for hours. Many of the villagers' fields were flooded, washing away their crops. Aneo's large farm, which he had always boasted about, was destroyed. When the storm ended, the villagers went to check Ekene's field, expecting it to be ruined like the others. But to their astonishment, her field stood unharmed. The millet plants swayed gently in the breeze, as though untouched by the storm. Is this another miracle? The villagers whispered. Aneo, too, came to see, his face pale with disbelief. How is this possible? He muttered. Ekene smiled softly and said, I do not have all the answers. But I believe when we plant with faith, protect what we are given, and trust in God, we are shielded from the worst storms. The villagers began to reflect on their actions. Those who had turned against Ekene felt ashamed and apologized. Even Aneo, who had spread lies about her, knelt before her in the village square. Forgive me, Ekene, he said. I let pride and envy blind me. Ekene forgave him and said, We are all learning, Aneo. What matters is that we grow from our mistakes. With renewed unity, the villagers came together to rebuild their fields and share what was left of the harvest. Ekene continued teaching them, not just about farming but about faith, patience, and kindness. Her field became a symbol of hope, and her altar became a place where villagers came to pray and find peace. Over time, the village flourished. Aneo, inspired by Ekene's example, used his wealth to help others instead of seeking power. Ekene's life, once filled with hardship, became a testimony to the power of faith and perseverance. Moral lesson: faith, hard work, and kindness can turn even the darkest times into blessings. When we trust in God, remain patient, and stay true to our values, we can overcome life's storms and inspire others to do the same. Sharing our blessings and forgiving others not only strengthens us, but also builds a better community. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed our story. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye for now.